Hi, I'm Nicole Vasilevsky, and this is my talk on the OBO Academy, which is a resource that provides freely available online training materials for bio-ontologists and semantic engineers. So the OBO Academy is an online resource that contains open, self-paced training materials that are intended to cover all aspects of ontology development and curation. The content is available as a MakeDocs website and is hosted in a GitHub repository called OBOOK, which stands for Open Biological and Biomedical Ontologies Organized Knowledge. The goal of creating this resource is to provide documentation of our workflows and best practices and provide ongoing training for the OBO community. The project was initially developed by curators and semantic engineers from the OBO Foundry, thanks to generous funding from the Critical Path Institute, which is a nonprofit organization that uses semantic technologies for drug development. While these materials were initially created by our team, they're now intended to be a community resource, and that is further developed upon and approved upon by the community. So these materials were developed under the guiding principles of the OBO Foundry. The OBO Foundry is a community of ontology developers and engineers who are committed to developing ontologies under a shared set of principles, including making ontologies open, interoperable, and scientifically accurate. A lot of the content in the OBO Academy resource documents best practices for ontology development that adheres to these principles. So why did we create the OBO Academy? For numerous reasons. One, we initially developed a lot of the materials for this specific training course for employees at the Critical Path Institute, and our funder generously offered for us to make these materials openly available to the community. So one of the problems that we were facing that really created this need for having this content in the OBO Academy was that there was a lot of knowledge that has been siloed amongst our community. So ontology development is a collaborative process, and a lot of us have individual knowledge in technical areas or curation expertise or domain knowledge. However, a lot of the specialized knowledge is not always well documented, and it definitely was not available in a centralized place. So in our community, resources were available. For example, there are resources listed on the OBO Foundry website. There are tutorials offered every year at the ICBO conference. The Monarch Initiative Consortium has regular training sessions, but this is the first time that we've aggregated all of our collective knowledge into one place. And lastly, we've encountered a lot of frequently asked questions that come up amongst our community members. Things like how to set up Protege for ontology editing, or how to use the ontology development kit, or how to use robot. So we really needed a way to bridge this gap and create a single resource of knowledge that contains well-documented and accessible training materials. So the materials that we created and made available here are meant to cater to a lot of different user groups. And what I have shown here are some examples of different types of users that might benefit from these resources, but this is by no means exhaustive. So for example, we have database curators like model organism database curators who annotate publications with ontology terms and make new term requests and report issues to specific ontologies that they use. We have ontology curators who are the ones who are involved in maintaining the content and ontologies and the iterative development and the content in specific ontologies. We have ontology engineers who may be defining the QC checks that are running to ensure consistency amongst the ontologies. We have pipeline specialists who develop workflows and pipelines, such as how to use robot templates for specific types of workflows and design the release processes and workflows, and semantic software engineers who may be developing software that uses ontologies and specific applications and user interfaces. So this is not meant to be an exhaustive list of different types of users, but merely some examples of folks who may find these training materials useful. So just to emphasize our goal, so we are hoping with the development of this resource to capture the collective knowledge across these different roles into a single resource of documented knowledge, where one can go and learn about ontology development and also use this as a resource for just how-to guides and kind of documented knowledge. And it's meant to be broadly applicable across a broad spectrum of audiences and skill levels. So I'll speak a bit about our approach and our design philosophy for how we developed these materials. So as I mentioned, this is a community effort. So we created these initial materials and made them freely available, and now anyone is welcome to access these and contribute to them. It's intended to be a continuously evolving resource and continuously iterated upon. It's just kind of a work in progress. And if you go to our resources and you find that things might be incomplete or there might be typos or inconsistencies, we'd love for you to go in and fix them and welcome your contributions. This is not a finalized resource, but it's kind of a work in progress of documenting all of our knowledge. And we want you to also be the editors, and this is your resource. So some comments on the design. The resources are available on our website that was built using MakeDocs, and in the back end, the content is stored in a GitHub repository, and all the content is developed using the Markdown language. We purposely avoided creating a collection of PowerPoint slides because these are less accessible due to proprietary formats, and the content isn't easily searched. In this Markdown format, the content is easier. It was nicer to create a nicer layout, and the content is searchable via the search bar. It makes it much more, the Markdown format makes it much more easy to navigate. And in addition, it's also findable in Google. So the OBO Academy content is available at this link at the bottom of the screen. So all the training materials are intended to be self-contained and to ensure that they can be studied without further guidance by a teacher. So the materials have step-by-step instructions in them, and in some cases, in the lessons, we have associated exercises for users to be able to apply their new knowledge that they've gained from these lessons. So the content's also arranged according to this diataxis framework. So this entailed creating content that's divided into these four different areas. So we have tutorials, which are learning, or I think we call them lessons, which are learning-oriented materials that contain exercises to help learners achieve basic competencies in specific areas, like, for example, how to create a pull request in GitHub. We also have how-to guides, which are task-oriented guides that function as directions for specific tasks, like setting up Protege, for example. We have reference guides, which are information-oriented documentation that describes describes topics in succinct and technical and orderly ways. And we also have explanations, which are documentation that are intended to clarify or deepen or broaden the learner's understanding of a particular subject. So the available content that we have, I'll show you in this next slide an example of some of the content. So I'm just going to play this little video.
This is the landing page for the OBO Semantic Engineering Training website. So this is kind of gives you the about description. On the left-hand side here, you can see the different types of content that we have here. So we have courses, pathways, lessons. Some lessons are under development, so those have been organized here. The tutorials, how-to guides, etc. And just to take you through an example of a lesson, if we expand the lesson content, we can look at contributing to ontologies. And all the lessons are structured quite similarly in this format, where we have necessary prerequisites, any preparation, description and learning objectives of what someone should learn in this course. And then we keep track of who's contributed to the lesson. So all the contributors get attribution, and then it goes into the tutorials. And on the right-hand side, you can see all the different and all this is a table of contents for the content that's actually in the tutorial. And if we go all the way down to the bottom, we see that there's some exercises here to have the learner go through interactive exercises to help learn all of these different workflows. This is the landing page for the.
Okay. So yes, that is an example of the content that we have in there. And I mentioned in the little video that we have the pathways. So this is one of the other features that we have in the OBO Academy. So we aggregated specific materials that are targeted to specific user groups. So this includes ontology curators. So we have a pathway for ontology curators that has documentation that's most relevant to what they need to learn in order to become an ontology curator or enhance their skills as an ontology curator. And we have that broken up into two different pathways. One is the Go style, the gene ontology, which primarily does editing based in using Protege, or the OB style, the ontology of biomedical investigations, which does ontology editing primarily using robot templates. And then we also have pathways for ontology engineers and developers, as well as ontology contributors. And the ontology contributors really can include anybody, any person who contributes to an ontology, which may include curators and developers, as well as outside users who are using ontologies for annotations. As part of the Monarch Initiative Consortium, we've been offering bi-weekly training materials to our internal community. We've used two approaches for this live training. So we did a flipped classroom approach where we asked attendees to review specific tutorials and lessons in advance and go through the materials on their own. And then we meet in sessions on Zoom, and we were available to answer questions. This approach seemed to work quite well, but we got some feedback that the time it would take to prepare the lesson was time consuming, and users didn't have enough time in between sessions to be able to properly prepare. And upon request, we've also been doing demonstrations and more kind of lecture-based content, or kind of combination of lecture demonstration for 20 minutes, followed by interactive exercises that we do live with the members of the call. And we try to focus these on specific topics that are of interest to the audience. So we also have a discussion board on the GitHub repository where we ask folks to request specific topics and content that they'd like to learn about. And then we have members of the Monarch community vote on it. And then we tailor the schedule week to week based on the particular interests of our community. So finally, I will discuss how one can contribute to this resource, to the OBO Academy. So as I mentioned, the content is stored in GitHub, and it's an open repository, so anybody can contribute to it. Areas that we really need assistance and contributions is updating the existing materials. A lot of the material is kind of under development, kind of a placeholder kind of content. So any review and updates to the existing materials is greatly needed and appreciated. Also, we welcome anyone to create new materials, create new lessons from scratch, or other how-to guides or other kinds of content. Is a really valuable addition to what we already have. We also have a new lesson template available that has kind of guiding prompts as to the kind of content that we like to include in each lesson. The guide showed you in the demo above. Also, you can create issues on our tracker. So if you see bugs or issues and don't want to go in and fix the content yourself, feel free to create an issue on our tracker. And also, if you're not an expert in a certain area, but you want to learn about a specific topic, you are more than welcome to make a request for additional content. And hopefully amongst our community, we can find someone that can create content based on what people are interested in learning. And you're also welcome to review the pull requests. So as content is developed and changed, the workflow is to make make content changes and then make pull requests. So if you would like to go on, look at open pull requests and review those and comment, that's also another way you can contribute. So if you're not familiar with using GitHub, then don't worry, we have a how-to guide for that. So that's available at this link shown here. And just note that when you're on the OBO Academy website, there's these little pens in the upper right-hand corner of each page, and you can just click directly on this, and then this will take you to the GitHub repository where you can edit the page. So for example, if you see a typo in some of the content, just click on the pen and go into GitHub and make the change and make a pull request, and we will review it and approve it. Note, you do need to have a GitHub account in order to make edits with this content. And it's simple to sign up for GitHub, just at github.com. And we do have tutorials on getting started with GitHub. So in summary, to wrap up, today I shared information with you about our OBO Academy resource, which we created due to this need to create a centralized place of consolidated documentation of our ontology development workflows and best practices. This is a community resource, and we hope that you'll view it and contribute to it. And we encourage you to use this as a model for your own documentation for other areas and training materials. I think this has been quite successful, and we look forward to offering more content to our community going forward. This work has been a collective effort of many people, and I'd like to acknowledge some of our primary contributors here, in particular, Nicole Vasilevsky, who's been leading this effort and been really critical in moving this forward. And lastly, in my talk, I included pictures of parks from around Portland, Oregon, where I live. And so I listed the image credits here. And thank you for listening. Please visit our website and use our materials, and come visit Portland and our beautiful parks. Thanks.